Hey, this is Dave Duford back with Final Expense Agent Mentor. Today is part 2 of the Final Expense Sales Presentation process. Today we're going to talk about what I feel and believe is the most important part of a Final Expense Presentation. It is a fact-finding pre-qualification stage to delivering your presentation. I think that this portion of the sales process is the most fundamental that you need to learn. The good news is it doesn't need to be scripted necessarily, but the concepts need to be ingrained in your head. And here's what I mean. In my philosophy of sales is that I want to figure out as quickly as possible if the person I'm sitting across the table from is actually qualified to buy this particular product I'm selling. I hate wasting time in this business. It pisses me off. If I got to sit across the table from Mildred, she's got enough insurance, but she wants to tell me her life story, I don't want to hear it. I want to figure out who she is, what her needs are, and if it makes sense for both of us to talk about life insurance, not about something else. So how do you do that in a polite, constructive manner that actually does the job in a timely fashion without being rude? Well, it's very simple. What you have to realize is that when you sell life insurance, you need a couple of things taken care of up front to figure out if that's something that, if this prospect is really a prospect. So what are those things? First, you need to know why they sent the card in or why they requested the information. You need to know if their health qualifies. You need to know if they've got a bank account. And you need to know if they've got a budget in mind that they can put towards plan. I can find out all 4 of these points in about 5 minutes after I introduce myself. So here's what you say in a nutshell. To me, I'm very open-ended and diplomatic in my sales process. And what I mean by that is I'm sincerely interested. When I sit across the table from a future customer, I want to know what makes them tick. Why do they do the things that they do? So when I sit across the table from them, I show them the card that they sent in, and I tell them most people send the card in because they're interested in taking care of final expenses so a loved one doesn't have to come out of pocket for it. Then I ask them, what were your thoughts and concerns, Mrs. Jones, when you decided to send this card in? And I let them tell me. I want to hear why. I don't want to tell them why. I sincerely want to hear what makes them tick. Did they lose a family member? Have they been procrastinating about this a long time? Have they just been... did they just lose their coverage, or they have coverage that went up in price? I want to hear from them what they have to say about why they sent the card in. The more that you ask these open-ended questions, especially in the fact-finding stage, the more you'll find out about your client, about what makes them tick. And the things they say, you use as the ammo to close them on the sale later. Like if Mildred says that she had a plan, it went up in price, and I'm concerned I don't want to die and have to have my kids pay for my burial like I had to pay for my husband's who's deceased. You can use that stuff at the very end and make an emphatic, rational, emotional close that hits right at home. About how important it is to take care of this, that there are no price increases, and you won't be a burden. And nobody will have to come out of pocket like you experienced in the past. See, these are things that if you just barrel through it, you won't know. And you won't have that leverage in making the final attempt to close up the deal. So what I ask kind of in the beginning is why you sent the card in. I ask them what I call the 3 points, the 3 reasons why they send the card in if I don't get a good response from that, which are some people have no coverage, some coverage, or they've got enough but want more. Which do you fit? Then I ask some close-in questions like, do you want to be buried or cremated? How much coverage would you need to give you peace of mind? I ask these questions again to develop a picture of who this person is and what their needs are. Because my goal as a salesperson is to meet the need first. And then above and beyond that, meet the want. But I need to establish what it is that they're looking for and what they have in mind. So once I do that, then I ask the health questions. Now this is very important. You don't want to just say, hey, have you had any health problems in the past 2 or 3 years? Most people are like, not really. You need to ask specific, detailed questions about their health. And the way I do it is this. I ask, You ever had any lung problems like COPD? Do you take oxygen, any inhalers? Do you have diabetes? If they say yes, pills or insulin. Any diabetic complications like neuropathy in the feet? Ever had any cancer? Ever had any liver or kidney problems? Ever had any heart problems? Many people will say no, and then you back up with it and say, like heart attack, stroke, stents, bypasses, seizures, aneurysms, pacemakers. They'll say, oh yeah, I've got a pacemaker. You know, or I had a stroke. A lot of people don't connect the two. They think when you say heart attack or you say heart problems, they think heart attack. Then I ask them about neurological problems like lupus, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's, and then end the health questions with depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, dementia. Hitting the main points right in a row like that. And I highly advise you as an agent to use the same procedure and sequence that I did, because you'll get more specific answers back when you ask the questions, which in some gives you a better chance to close the deal without having to come back or do a point of sale and get declined because you didn't ask specific questions. Once I ask the health questions, next I go to the prescriptions. I ask for the client to actually physically get the prescriptions, bring them out to me and let me look at them, and then after that actually get the list as well, if they've got that as well. I'll write everything down, ask about any medications and get clarification on. If something's just kind of confusing looking, I'll look in my prescription guide to get some more information on it. But I'm gathering specific facts to pre-qualify this client where they are going to fit out of my, my goodie bag of different carriers. Which carrier is going to be the best for them. Once I get done with that, the next two questions I have go like this, and this is scripted. You have to remember and say it exactly like I'm doing or kind of close to it. The first is, my last two questions I have for you, Mr. Jones. The first is about your budget. I'm sorry, your bank account, your bank, or how payment works, excuse me. As far as how payment works, Mrs. Jones, we don't come by like the old days and actually collect cash money for your payment. Those are the old days. Everybody now has everything set up to automatically come out of their bank account. Or if they've got a little green Direct Express card, to automatically come out of that. Which one of those do you use? So the phraseology there is assumptive in the close. You know, we do everything electronically, automatically. Which one do you use? I don't ask them if it's okay. And then they tell me. Again, now if I know they've got a Direct Express card, I know which carriers I'm going to use and which ones I'm not that don't accept it. Whereas if there's a bank account, I know they're all good. And then the last question is that I ask for the budget. Again, there's a very specific approach for asking for the budget. You don't want to ask them, hey, what's comfortable for you? A lot of people take that in suspicion. Like, what does that mean? What's your best price? It's just, you don't want to say that. Here's what you want to say to specifically get a premium commitment. Again, the approach is you want to ask high, but give an out to ask lower. Shoot high and come down so you can make sure you maximize the amount of commission that you get. Here's the script. Mrs. Jones, my final question for you is about price. Let me be totally upfront with you. Everybody that I see is on a fixed income. That means they're disabled, retired, and there's no money tree out back, okay? And you're probably in the same situation, right? Yes, and usually they're nodding their head yes at this point. Well, here's what I mean by it. And the reason I'm explaining this is that the last thing you want to do, Mrs. Jones, is take out a plan that's too much for you. There's nothing more tragic than taking a plan out and then dropping it in 6 months. It's a waste of money. The best plan that you need to buy, Mrs. Jones, is the one that's there when you die. Because that's what fits your budget. And that's the one that's going to do the job. Not the overpriced one with $1 million if you can't afford it. So my question to you, Mrs. Jones, is this. If I can qualify you for a plan today, would you be able to afford somewhere between $80 to $100 a month? Then zip it. Let them tell you yes or no. Now, a little rule of thumb here. You need a specific 100% yes to that question. Not a maybe, not a probably. If you hear that, that means they can't afford it. And you need to ask and say, hey, Mrs. Jones, that's totally fine. I've got a lot of other plans, options as well. Let me ask you this. If I can get you another plan, could you afford somewhere between $50 and $70 a month? So now you're working down to get the most you can out of what it is that you're looking for. Now, as far as where I'm at in my career, I used to shoot high and go lower. for me, the important thing in final expense is to keep what you sell. I'm more concerned about selling something that's easily affordable than I am maxing out my commission dollars, because it's a numbers game, and if I just run more appointments, I'll see enough people to make the money I want to. So I take what they want. Like if I got a $10,000, the 65-year-old non-smoking female wants a $10,000 plan and they're in perfect shape, it's going to cost $35 to $45 a month. So I'll just tell them, if I can get you a plan, can you do $40 to $50 a month? You know, so I know exactly what they're looking for. And then I also know if they want to be buried based on the questions I ask sooner, I could probably get them a $7,000, somewhere between $25 and $35 a month. So I can kind of know where I'm going with this and what to say to justify it if, say, they can't afford the $40 to $50. But this is the most important part of the presentation. If you skip any of this, it will come back to bite you. And if you get to the sale and you ask for the business and you skipped out on these steps, I promise you, and they object and you walk away wondering, what the hell happened? Why didn't I get the deal? I promise you it's because you weren't specific with doing the most accurate and specific fact-finding questions that we talked about now. I still make errors like this. It's less than I used to when I began, but you have to stick to the process of the fact-finding process, because this is what gives you everything you need to know if this person you're across the table from is actually a true qualified prospect. Because if they don't say no, or if they don't say yes to just one of these issues, then you're wasting your time and you don't have a qualified prospect. For example, if they're hot to trot on insurance and baby they need it now, but they don't have a bank account and they don't have the money to pay you today for a quarterly payment, I'm out of there. They're not a prospect. You're wasting your time. Time is a valuable asset. You need to leave. Get out of there. It's a waste of time. But if they say, yes, I got a bank account. Yes, I'm in perfect shape. But damn it, I hate bank drafts. If you can't get past that, you don't have a sale. Okay? You can present to your blue in the face. You can show them how great this is and how wonderful it is. But God forbids them to draft a bank draft. You're not getting the sale if they can't pay quarterly. See what I'm saying? I'm emphatic about this because agents always shortchange this section. I have tons of agents. I train them this exact approach, and they do not do this section many times more often than not. And this is why they sit there pissed off because they didn't get the sale. It's because it wasn't a prospect anyway. Or you didn't take the time to talk through and qualify this stuff up front to better understand if this person really is somebody you can do business with, which is what we only care about as an agent. So that's the fact-finding section. Very valuable information. I hope you found it useful and relevant. Any questions you have, visit feagentmentor.com. Check out my part 3 coming up here in a minute, which is the actual meat and potatoes presentation. And thanks for listening. Take care.